Hello and thank you for tuning into News Today, where we break down the day's top stories with precision and clarity. Without delay, take a look at the headlines first. The special category status demand by Bihar and Andhra Pradesh has gained momentum after 2024 Lok Sabha election results. 74 women have been elected to 18th Lok Sabha, accounting for 13.6% representation in the Lok Sabha. The second advance estimates of 2023-24 of area and production of horticultural crops have been released. The IIT Madras researchers have shown formation of nanoparticles from common minerals. A World of Debt Report 2024, A Growing Burden to Global Prosperity, has been released by the UN Trade and Development. Study says global groundwater warming is a result of climate change. Let us begin with the very first news. In the aftermath of the 2024 Lok Sabha elections, the long-standing demand for special category status by Bihar and Andhra Pradesh has gained renewed momentum. This classification granted by the centre is aimed at assisting states that face geographical and socio-economic disadvantages in their development efforts. The concept of special category status was first introduced in the year 1969 on the recommendations of the 5th Finance Commission. Initially, Jammu and Kashmir, Assam and Nagaland were granted SCS, with Sikkim and Tripura following suit later. These states received grants based on the Gadgil-Mukherjee formula. It is important to note that while the Constitution of India does not explicitly provide for the categorization of states as SCS, a wide range of special provisions are available to certain states listed under Articles 371, 371A to 371H and 371J. However, the current special funding pattern to northeastern and Himalayan states, etc., is on account of recommendations of subgroup of chief ministers and not as per their special category status. The granting of SCS to states comes with several significant advantages. In SCS states, the center-state funding ratio for centrally sponsored scheme is divided in a 90:10 ratio, which is far more favorable than the 60:40 or 80:20 splits applicable to general category states. Additionally, SCS states have the provision to carry forward unspent funds, enabling them to better utilize resources and plan for long-term development projects. Moreover, to attract investments, SCS states are exempted from customs duty, corporate tax, income tax, and other taxes, providing a conducive environment for economic growth. The criteria for granting SCS to states typically include factors such as hilly and difficult terrain, low population density or a sizable share of tribal population, strategic location along borders with neighboring countries, economic and infrastructural backwardness, and the non-viable nature of state finances. These criteria aim to identify and support states facing unique challenges that hinder their development progress. As the debate surrounding SCS intensifies, potential solutions may involve revisiting the criteria for granting SCS, exploring alternative mechanisms for channeling resources to disadvantaged regions, or adopting a more targeted approach to address specific developmental challenges.
In our next news, the recently concluded 18th Lok Sabha elections witnessed the election of 74 women members, accounting for 13.6% representation in the lower house of the Indian Parliament. However, this figure marks a slight dip in women's representation compared to the 17th Lok Sabha, where 78 women were elected, comprising 14.4% of the total members. Let's begin by learning more about the status of women representation in legislatures. An analysis of the election results reveals that out of the 797 women candidates who contested the 18th Lok Sabha elections, only 9.7% emerged victorious. In contrast, during the 17th Lok Sabha elections, 10.74% of the 726 women contestants won their respective seats. While women's representation in the Lok Sabha has gradually increased from a mere 5% in the first Lok Sabha to its highest of 14.4% in the 17th Lok Sabha, the current scenario still highlights the ongoing struggle for equal political representation. Presently, women members constitute 14.05% of the Rajya Sabha, the upper house of the Indian Parliament, further underscoring the need for greater inclusivity. Globally, the share of women in national parliaments stands at 26.9%, indicating that India still has significant ground to cover in achieving gender parity in its legislative bodies. Let's quickly understand the significance of women representation. Women legislators perform better in their constituencies on economic indicators than their male counterparts. Accounting for around 50% population, legislative representation is fundamental to political empowerment. Women are less likely to be criminal and corrupt and less vulnerable to political opportunism. Furthermore, the pathway to improved representation has certain challenges to women's legislative representation. Societal prejudices like male-dominated political structures and family obligations play a significant role. Apart from that, structural disadvantages like costly and time-consuming election campaigns are also a hurdle. These are marred by inappropriate commenting, hate speeches, abusive threats, and muscle power. Lastly, women themselves are often influenced by patriarchal societal norms. Wrapping up, take a quick look at the steps taken for increasing women political representation. The Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam 2023 106th Amendment Act aims to reserve 1/3 of seats for women in Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies, including Legislative Assembly of Delhi. The 73rd and 74th constitutional amendments made reservation of 1/3 seats in panchayats and municipalities for women. Also, India pledged to achieve SDG Target 5.5, which calls for women's full and effective participation at all levels of decision-making in politics and public life. In conclusion, overcoming societal prejudices, male-dominated political structures, and structural disadvantages faced by women candidates remains crucial to ensuring their effective participation and representation in the highest decision-making bodies of the country. In our next news, the Department of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare has released the second advance estimates of area and production of horticulture crops for 2023-24. The estimates reveal that the overall horticulture production in India has decreased to 352.23 million tons in 2023-24, marking a 0.91% decline compared to the previous year. While the production of fruits, honey, flowers, plantation crops, spices, and aromatic and medicinal plants has increased, there has been a decrease in the production of vegetables. Let's begin by learning more about the horticulture sector. Horticulture is the art of production, utilization, and improvement of fruits and vegetables, spices and condiments, ornamental, plantation, medicinal, and aromatic plants. It is a vital sector in Indian agriculture, contributing about 33% to the country's agricultural gross value added. India stands as the second largest producer of vegetables and fruits globally after China. Horticulture crops are high-value crops offering higher productivity and requiring less irrigation, ultimately increasing profitability for farmers. These crops are rich sources of nutrients, vitamins, minerals, and dietary fibers, making them essential for a healthy diet. Additionally, the demand for horticulture produce in the international market serves as a good source of foreign exchange for the country. Horticulture produce serves as raw material for various industries like food processing, pharmaceutical, etc. However, the sector faces challenges such as outdated harvesting practices, inadequate cold chain infrastructure, resulting in 4.6 to 15.9% wastage annually. Lack of high-quality seedlings and rootstock poses another challenge. Climate change and persistent pests also pose threats, leading to infestations and plant diseases, diminishing crop yield and quality. Wrapping up, let's look at the initiatives taken to promote horticulture. First and foremost, we have Mission for Integrated Development of Horticulture, a centrally sponsored scheme for holistic growth of horticulture sector growing fruits, vegetables, roots and tuber crops, mushrooms, etc. Additionally, Horticulture Cluster Development Program is also in line to leverage geographical specialization and promote integrated market-led development of horticulture clusters. In conclusion, the government's focus on addressing the challenges faced by the horticulture sector, including investment in infrastructure, adoption of modern practices, and climate-resilient measures, will be crucial in ensuring sustainable growth and ensuring food security for the nation.
Moving on to the next news. In a groundbreaking discovery, researchers from the Indian Institute of Technology Madras have unveiled a remarkable process that could revolutionize the formation of nanoparticles. Their study has shown that common minerals such as river sand, ruby, and alumina can be instantly broken down into corresponding nanoparticles by charged water microdroplets. Microdroplets, tiny water droplets around 10 micrometers in size, are known to enhance chemical reactions. In nature, these microscopic wonders are generated by crashing ocean waves and atmospheric processes. The enhancement of the nanoparticle formation process by microdroplets holds immense potential for various applications. This technique could provide a transformative soil formation by accelerating natural weathering process, benefiting agriculture and ecosystem restoration efforts. Additionally, this discovery could enable efficient and cost-effective nanoparticle production. Furthermore, mineral nanoparticles such as silica play a crucial role in the growth of crops like rice and wheat. Now let us understand in detail about the nanoparticles. Nanoparticles are tiny particles with sizes ranging from 1 to 100 nanometers. Their unique properties, which depend on their shape, size, surface characteristics, and inner structure, have made them invaluable in various fields. Nanoparticles can be encountered as aerosols, which are solids or liquids in air, suspensions, which are solids in liquids, or emulsions, that are liquids in liquids. They can be formed naturally through erosion or weathering processes, or they can be produced through human-induced industrial and domestic activities such as cooking, manufacturing, and transportation. Moreover, there are two primary approaches to nanoparticle manufacturing. The top-down approach, which involves breaking down larger particles into nanostructures, and the bottom-up approach, which involves assembling small atoms or molecules into nanostructures. The versatility of nanoparticles has led to their widespread application across diverse fields. In the medical field, they are used to target drug delivery, gene therapy, and tissue engineering. Industrially, they are utilized for inducing unique electrical and mechanical properties, creating stronger, lighter, and cleaner surfaces. In food processing, nanoparticles are incorporated for antimicrobial agents and controlling gas permeability in food packaging. Environmentally, they play a role in air purification with ions, wastewater purification with nanobubbles, or nanofiltration systems for heavy metals. Moreover, nanoparticles are essential in the electronics industry for printed electronics, including carbon nanotubes. In conclusion, by exploiting the ability of charged water microdroplets to break down common minerals into nanoparticles, this discovery holds the potential to revolutionize various industries and scientific endeavors. Moving on to the next news, the release of A World of Debt Report 2024, A Growing Burden to Global Prosperity by the UN Trade and Development, has shed light on the alarming surge in global public debt and the urgent need to address this crisis. First, let's understand about public debt. Public debt refers to general government domestic and external debt. Coming to the report, it paints a concerning picture with global public debt reaching a historic peak of $97 trillion in the year 2023. Driven by the cascading crisis and the sluggish and uneven performance of the global economy. Notably, the report highlights a striking regional disparity, with public debt in developing countries accounting for 30% of global total, rising at twice the rate of developed countries. In India, public debt reached an alarming $2.9 trillion in 2023, accounting for a staggering 82.7% as a share of GDP. The implications of high public debt levels extend far beyond the realm of finance, posing significant challenges to economic growth, social development, and environmental sustainability. More than half of developing countries allocate at least 8% of their government revenues to interest payments. Alarmingly, 3.3 billion individuals reside in nations where interest payments exceed combined spending on education and health. Moreover, in emerging and developing countries, interest payments outweigh climate investments. In response to this growing crisis, the UNCTAD report proposes a comprehensive roadmap. This roadmap suggests an inclusive international financial architecture that ensures greater participation of developing countries in its governance. Furthermore, the report emphasizes the need to provide greater liquidity in times of crisis by expanding contingency finance through IMF instruments. Recognizing the importance of long-term financing for sustainable development, the report advocates for the transformation and expansion of multilateral development banks. The report acknowledges various initiatives aimed at addressing the debt crisis, including the Heavily Indebted Poor Countries Initiative by the IMF and World Bank, the Debt Management and Financial Analysis System Program of UNCTAD, and the Global Sovereign Debt Roundtable launched in February 2023 by the IMF in coordination with the World Bank and India's G20 presidency. As the world grapples with the mounting public debt crisis, the UNCTAD report serves as a clarion call to engage the global community in addressing this pressing issue.
In our next news, a recent study published in the journal Nature Geosciences has projected a concerning rise in groundwater temperature due to climate change. According to the study, the global average groundwater temperature is expected to increase by a staggering 2.1 degrees Celsius between 2000 and 2100. The implications of this groundwater warming are far-reaching and alarming. Increased temperatures can reduce oxygen levels in water, leading to hypoxic conditions that can impact the growth and distribution of aquatic species. Additionally, the rise in temperature may contribute to harmful algal blooms due to an increase in soluble phosphorus levels. Furthermore, groundwater warming has the potential to disrupt the food and reproductive cycles of temperature-sensitive species, threatening biodiversity. The increased growth of pathogens can also deteriorate water quality, posing risks to human health and the environment. Lastly, it carries the potential to sustainably satisfy local heating demands. Let us understand more about the status of groundwater in India. India, which has the largest area under groundwater irrigation in the world, is particularly vulnerable to these impacts. The recent Dynamic Groundwater Resource Assessment for 2022 revealed that 14% of the assessed units are overexploited and 4% are classified as critical, indicating unsustainable groundwater extraction practices. We consider the extraction as overexploited if it exceeds annually replenishable groundwater recharge, and critical when groundwater extraction is between 90 to 100% of annual extractable resources available. An important thing to note here is that the amount of water in polar ice caps and glaciers is more than the amount of groundwater. Also, amount of water in rivers and lakes is less than amount of groundwater. Now, let's quickly take a look at the importance of groundwater. It helps to replenish and maintain levels of surface water. It provides drinking water for nearly 50% of global population. It is a vital resource as it has varied uses in food production, crop irrigation, industrial processes like oil and gas, energy generation, etc. Wrapping up, here are some initiatives taken for groundwater conservation in India. First, we have Atal Bhujal Yojana under the Ministry of Jal Shakti for sustainable groundwater management. Secondly, Groundwater Management and Regulation, a center-sector scheme, deals with aquifer mapping and monitoring of groundwater levels and quality. And lastly, National Aquifer Mapping Program for Sustainable Aquifer Management. In conclusion, addressing groundwater warming and its consequences requires urgent action, including sustainable groundwater management practices, increased investment in renewable energy, and coordinated efforts to mitigate and adapt to climate change impacts on this precious resource. In today's Personality News, we will discuss Narayan Malhar Joshi. Recently, he was remembered on his birth anniversary. Also known as Nana Sahib Joshi, he was a trade unionist and freedom fighter born in Maharashtra. If we talk about his key contributions, he represented India at First International Labour Conference in 1919. He established Social Service League in 1911 and co-founded All India Trade Union Congress in 1920. He also helped establish Bombay Textile Labour Union. He was a prominent member of Bombay Provincial Congress Committee, People's Volunteer Brigade, and Servants of India Society. He is also known for his work in Royal Commission on Labour in India, describing conditions of workers. He exemplified values of patriotism, compassion, justice, and more.
As we conclude today's main news, let's have a look at some quick updates. Karnataka High Court has ordered the release of a convict on parole under extraordinary circumstances. If we talk about parole, then it means temporary release of a convict for a short period of time for attending to familial and social obligations like death in family. Recently, SEBI imposed a fine on some individuals for allegedly operating a pump and dump scheme. It was operated by recommendations shared through Telegram channels, resulting in public shareholders purchasing stock at inflated prices. SEBI has formed a committee under Usha Thorat to review ownership and economic structure of clearing corporations. If we talk about clearing corporation, then it is an entity which handles the activity of clearing and settlements of trades in securities or other instruments that are traded on stock exchanges. Prime Minister of Nepal has completed the last blast of head race tunnel of Arun 3 hydroelectric project in Nepal. This project is a 900 megawatt run-of-the-river hydropower project on Arun River in Sankhwa Sabhas district of eastern Nepal. QS World University Rankings 2025 has been released by Quacquarelli Simmons, a leading network of experts in education sector. These rankings are based on 9 performance indicators. Moreover, IIT Bombay has been ranked at 118. Global Annual to Decadal Climate Update 2024 to 2028 has been issued. This report is issued annually by the World Meteorological Organization and it provides a synthesis of the global annual to decadal predictions. Recently, researchers found that a marine fungus album can break down the plastic after being exposed to UV radiation. Such plastic degrading microorganisms can be utilized for bioremediation of plastics. Recently, Environmental Performance Index 2024 has been published by Yale Center for Environmental Law and Policy. EPI 2024 uses 58 performance indicators across 11 issue categories. Moreover, EPI ranks 180 countries on climate change performance, environmental health and ecosystem vitality. Before we sign off, let's challenge your understanding in today's installment of Test Your Knowledge. We appreciate your company. We hope you found this episode of News Today engaging. For the solution to today's quiz and to access the PDF version of News Today, remember to visit the provided links in the description.